Thank you. So I want to talk a little bit about Econocurious. Econocurious is a tracking study that we fielded back in November 2008 and then have continued to field throughout the recession. We initially started this study in 5 markets, the US, the UK, Germany, Spain, and Australia. And then coming out of summer 2009, we actually expanded this into the BRIC markets. We had a hypothesis that there were clearly different trends that were emerging in these markets, and we really wanted to understand how they compared to the other markets that we had, but also within BRIC markets, what trends were we seeing. So the research that I've got here is from January 2010. And really what it does is take a look at a quite high level across the markets. Obviously, there is an enormous amount of data that we have here, and we can't really drill in at this point into market by market. But what we've done here is really try to see how the BRIC markets are looking as it relates to the recession, how they're feeling coming out, how consumers are feeling coming out of the recession in those, but also whether or not you can think of them as a block of markets. One of the things that I think is really interesting of this data is that they're just very different. I mean, particularly when you look at India and China and Russia, these markets are behaving incredibly differently, although at a very macro level they may look similar. But the consumers within these markets are really expressing some very different values and are really feeling quite different in terms of the way that they're coming out of this recession and how that impacts brands. So the point of this study really was to not just look at how people were feeling about their personal financial situation, but really it was about trying to understand what they would do as a result of that. So what categories and brands are they going to cut spending on? Where are they going to focus their spending? And we really wanted to get at how behavior might actually change as a result of the situation that they were going through. So I'm going to take you through some data. I apologize if some of these charts might have a lot of information on them. I've tried to summarize them as much as I can. First thing we did was we asked people how they felt about their personal situation, what words they would use to describe their finances. We asked them, were you feeling good or positive or confident about your personal financial situation at this point? And also, how do you feel about, objectively, whether your finances, are they controlled? Do you feel organized? Do you feel that you are in control of your financial situation? Or do you feel it's just very chaotic and that you're really stretched and confused about your personal situation? And what I've done here is just map out the 9 countries that we've looked at. And you can clearly see 2 distinct groups here. I mean, on the one hand, you have the US and Spain in particular that are really clearly have been affected by the economic downturn, the US in particular. And that's a theme that we'll see as we go through this data. Germany and the UK also, but to a lesser degree than the UK and Spain. And then you have the BRIC markets. And to some extent, it's almost what recession? They haven't. They're feeling very positive. They're feeling very in control. And throughout the data, you see that there is a very strong sense of optimism, I guess. Interestingly, though, we have these 2 markets that are, that are slightly out of position of where you think they might be on this, and that's Australia and Russia. So Australia is almost behaving like a BRIC market, and Russia is actually a little closer to the European and the Western economies. And so we dug a little bit into this, and really what it is it's a result of how they operate, these markets. So clearly, Russia is exporting a lot of to Europe, and so geographically and financially, they are very related to the European markets, and so they have slightly more of a negative opinion right now as it relates to the situation. Whereas, on the other hand, Australia has been caught up in this sort of Asian boom, if you like, because that's where they're exporting a lot of their their products. And they are behaving very similarly to some of the BRIC markets. And this is a theme that we'll see throughout this, that Australia is really almost BRIC-like in the way that it's performing. So digging into this a bit more, we asked people, excuse me, I'm sorry. We asked people whether they had enough money to basically survive. Were they able to afford basic luxuries, or how were they able to really deal with day-to-day living? 5-point scale, we asked, do you feel that you have enough money to basically buy anything that you might want, all the way through to, I don't really have enough money to even cover my basic needs. And there's some really fascinating things here. The US, 41% of people are basically saying they don't have enough money to cover their basic needs. It really is unrelated to the economic diversity across these markets. It's the UK as well, 40% of people saying they can't really afford to cover their basic needs, only up there with India. On the other hand, Russia seems to be a very strong market, that you have people who are basically, what is that? That's almost 80% of people saying that they have either enough money to cover their needs or have money to basically buy a lot of luxury products going forward. So it's a very interesting difference, and we try to dig into what's really driving this, and it's about the amount of debt that people are carrying, not surprisingly. You look at the US, over half of the people that we surveyed really have quite a substantial amount of debt, and that is clearly playing into how they feel about their situation. Russia, on the other hand, the majority of people just do not, over 30% of people claiming they have no personal debt at all. They have able to contribute to their savings every month. And some very interesting issues as you look into this.